Hey there, Knicks fans. How you doing? It's your boy Jonathan Macri with you for another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. I don't know what day it is. I don't know where I am. I don't know what's going on. I don't know really anything. But I know I'm seeing this guy for the second time in like how many hours? I've completely lost track of all time. The last 14, 15 hours, something like that. Of The Athletic, also of Katz and Shoot on patreon.com. And he was at the Garden last night, as was I, Fred Katz. Hello, sir.
Hello. That should really be your guys' new slogan for the pod.
What's that?
Knicks Film School, where John Macri doesn't know what day it is, doesn't know what's going on, and admittedly doesn't know anything. It's perfect.
It's accurate.
I mean, it's not false advertising.
No,
people would listen in, they'd be like, wow, this guy really has no idea what's going on. But in your defense, I don't think anybody knew what the hell was going on last night. That was one of the wilder sequences I have ever covered in my entire life.
I want to start there. What can you compare it to anything?
Anything that I've covered or anything ever?
In person.
Anything I've covered in person. There have been some moments, I was covering the Thunder when Klay Thompson had his game 6 in Oklahoma City.
That's a big one.
That was a wild one. OKC coming back, letting go of a 3-1 series lead to the 73-win Warriors in that series. And that was conference finals. That was a pretty unbelievable one. But if we're talking just like pure singular moments, I have not been blessed with covering a ton of awesome teams. I covered the 2016 Thunder on that run, but I was not there for that. That was my first like short stint on a beat. And I came at the end of that season. And in terms of like full seasons, like last year was the first time I ever covered a team that won a first round playoff series.
Yeah.
And so I've never really, the Thunder every year with Russ were good, but they were losing in the first round, and the Wizards made it to the playoffs one time, and as an 8 seed, sub 500, got killed by the Sixers in the first round. And, last year was the first one. So I can't really think of anything crazier than that one. Hey, there aren't a lot of them. Even go back in Knicks history, there aren't a lot of them. Some of them against the Knicks, some of them for the Knicks. Larry Johnson's 4-point play and Reggie Miller's 8 points in 9 seconds. And this felt like really overdue retribution by the basketball gods for Reggie Miller.
I'm trying to verbalize the difference between the 4-point play and 8 points in 8.9 seconds, because they were not inexplicable. They were incredibly unlikely in different ways. Like, when has there ever been a 4-point play with a playoff game on the line like that? But then again, when has someone hit multiple threes in such a short span of time that completely turned around a game that you figured was in the bag? So in that sense, it is very much closer to 8 points in 8.9 seconds. I guess, except, and this didn't hit me until I watched, and thanks to DJ Zulo for tweeting it out. I don't know if you've listened to it or watched. Well, you watched it because you were in person, but listen to the Sixers broadcast.
I did.
You did. Like, Lowry's at the line, and it's 40. He missed the first, made the second, and it was 45 seconds left, roughly 42, 43.
Made the first, missed the second.
Made the first, missed the second. Thank you. I thought I had it right, and then somebody told me I had it wrong with the newsletter this morning, and I was thinking to myself, sure, I probably had it wrong because I can't see straight. But it was like 45 seconds left, and I don't have to tell you, but for anybody who hasn't heard it, go listen to the clip, because they hung a mission accomplished banner. It was like, okay, it's over, but it's like 5 points, 45 seconds. Like, I watched the Knicks, as did you, watch the Knicks lose a 13-point lead in 30 something seconds, or 10-point lead, whatever it was, against Dallas last year. Like, the NBA, crazy shit happens, and they were like, "Oh, game's over. We did it. We came in and accomplished what we had to accomplish."
You know what's so funny? Jerome Weitzman was the one who first made this observation to me. So whenever Tibbs talks about how games aren't over, they aren't over. He mentions the Tracy McGrady game.
That was 13.
It was 13 points in like 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Okay.
And if you're too young or you weren't following basketball then, go YouTube Tracy McGrady's 13 points in 30 seconds against the Spurs. It is the craziest stretch. It's just the craziest individual stretch you will see in a basketball game. It's obscene. I mean, the Reggie Miller one was epic because of the context. This was pure and utter insanity in terms of one dude just being like, you know what, we're absolutely not losing this game, and just draining threes in a time when like that wasn't a thing. You know, it wasn't a thing like it is now. And Tibbs was in the building for that, and he always brings it up, where it's like, why do you have your guys in with 30 seconds left in a 47-point game? Tibbs is like, well, you know, Tracy, I've been there. I've seen crazy things. I was there for the Tracy McGrady game. And Yaron Weitzman made this point to me. He was the first person who ever like framed it to me in this fashion. It really made me think, oh, Yaron's from Fox Sports does a great job. He's an awesome feature writer. And he just wrote a really good piece on Tibbs actually last week.
Need to get to that.
This was kind of the premise for that piece that he wrote on Tibbs, which is that Tibbs is the only person who was traumatized by something good happening to him. Like, he was in the building, and he always says, I was in the building for the Tracy McGrady thing, but he was on Tracy McGrady's team.
That's fantastic.
You know, like he was not on the other team. He wasn't an assistant with the Spurs. He was an assistant with the Rockets when Tracy McGrady did that while playing for the Rockets. And I feel like this will be Tibbs's new vantage point of being traumatized by a good thing that happened to him, where he is going to be like, you know, I was there when Dante DiVincenzo. You weren't there. You were the head coach. I was there when Dante DiVincenzo hits that three. I was there when Tyrese Maxey falls down. Yeah. Crazy things happen. And, you know, even after I could tell it was happening in the moment. Even after the game last night, he's like, you know, you guys, the writers, you always think the game is over. I never say the game is over. I was like, Tibbs, I promise I have covered you for long enough that I never think the game is over anymore. I promise you've convinced me otherwise.
I mean, in fairness to obviously you ignorant writers, and the Sixers broadcast team, like, I thought the game was over. Freely,
John, you thought the series was over.
Well, we're gonna get back to my thoughts about the series. I want to save those.
I feel like the listeners of this podcast need to know that 14 seconds into game one, our group text got a chat saying, "Oh, series over, Sixers won."
Yeah, I mean, I kind of cop to that. I forget which.
No, you didn't.
Oh no, you didn't. No,
not enough. This is the revelation that people have been waiting for. The context of that
series over. Series over. Sixers won.
I took one look at Embiid and how he looked in that game one. I was like, if he looks like this, no.
That's not what you said. It's a
series over.
The series is over.
Series is over.
At least summer will begin sooner.
Yes. To which all of us were like, John, it's like 2 seconds into the game one.
I'd seen enough.
Yep. The Knicks are plus 20 since John declared the series over. And have won 2 games since the series was over. Impressive that they've been able to win 2 games with the series being over.
I want to get back to the series as a whole, because I want to start with the very positive vibes first, because it warrants it. So yes, I thought the game was over, but it wasn't because you can't come back from 5 down with 40 some odd seconds left to go. It's that there was absolutely nothing. They had absolutely nothing going for them, because it was just like, I mean, they kept going to Brunson down the stretch. It wasn't happening. Again, I want to save that part of it for later, but it's like the momentum had completely and totally changed, despite the fact that the Knicks were in their building. I think they had gone several minutes without scoring a point. It was just really, it was not great. So I'll ask you, Tibbs accused you again, you nasty writers, of thinking the game is over, and how dare you? Did you guys, was there a point where you're like, oh, okay, we'll go back to game, or we'll go to game 3, it's going to be tied, and then whatever?
I don't think that way.
Okay.
I don't think.
Good for you.
No, I don't think that way. I more am in that moment thinking like, okay, for the Knicks, what are you doing next? Like, what are you trying to run here? Like, what are you going to do next? What are you going to try to get on this play? Like, that's not really how I think. I don't blame fans for not thinking that way. The reason that I'm able to think that way is because I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I'm not sitting there. Like, I don't think that way when I watch a Yankee game. When I watch a Yankee game, I'm like, my emotions take over, because I'm a huge Yankees fan. So as a Knicks fan, I have or as a Knicks reporter, I should say, and not a Knicks fan, I have the freedom to think more critically, less emotionally, and not declare the series over 14 seconds into it. And so I wasn't thinking it's over, and I also wasn't thinking like the Knicks have a chance. I was just like, I wonder what they're gonna try to get here. I wonder what they're gonna run here.
Okay. No, that's fair. And then I guess the only other question I want to ask you is, like, you were in the locker room afterwards. Can you set that? Can you describe that scene?
It was a very interesting scene because it was a group of people who have spent all season trying to dampen down the really high moments and prop up the really low ones.
Okay.
A group that like very openly prides itself on, okay, Julius Randle is done for the season. Who cares? Next man up. Can't get too low. Okay, Jalen Brunson made All-Star and then led this unbelievable comeback against the Pacers at home on this super emotional night, and Brunson's crying in the post-game interview with Alan Hahn and all that kind of stuff. Can't get too high. Forget about it the next day. It's all done. And so it was a group that I think knew that mentality, that approach was essential, not just to their success, but their identity. But also, they're all human beings. And they were all kind of like, what the hell is going on here? So you see their quotes in the scrums and at the podium, and you see Dante DiVincenzo saying, yeah, it was kind of like the Pistons game. And you're like, and like even Bondi in the moment is like, but was it really like the Pistons game? Which was a great, like, props to Bondi. That's a great follow-up. Like, the Pistons? Really? Yeah. It was really like the Pistons game. Like, are you me on Knicks Film School right now, just bringing up the Pistons in the middle of a Knicks playoff podcast? Because that's what's happening right now. Yeah. Yep. And it was a great follow-up question. And they're just kind of like, yeah, got to move forward, whatever else. And then once stuff is done, you could tell they're looking at each other. They're like, holy shit balls. How the hell did that happen? A couple players made comments to me being like, that crowd was nuts.
Really?
Yes. Yeah. A couple players were like, that crowd was insanity. Like they were marveling. It was an insane crowd. That was an all-time crowd last night. You were there.
I was, and I mean, I was just, and I was talking to you before we started recording. I was asking you, because I was having trouble finding it when the McBride smashing the ball away from Tyrese Maxey and then hitting the shot occurred, because I think that was the loudest moment before the final 30 seconds, and that moment again. Don't know how many times I've been to the Garden. I've been to the Garden for a lot of exciting shit. I had never heard it get as loud as it got when that happened, to say nothing of how loud it got in the final 30 seconds.
It was very loud when that happened. It was really loud when that group went on a run. That was such a pivotal moment in the game.
Oh my God.
I was talking about this. I recorded an episode of my pod earlier today, and I was talking about this a little bit on the pod, where it's like, in a literal sense, the Knicks won the game in the final seconds. In a more zoomed out sense, I think you can make the argument the game was lost in the first 4 minutes and 17 seconds of the fourth quarter. That's when Jalen Brunson is off the floor. And I know Brunson is just, I'm sure we'll talk about it, is just not playing like himself.
Talk about it.
I'm sure we will. I know he's not playing like himself, but I think it would have been, if you said to me coming into this series, this series is going to come down to the non-Brunson minutes versus the non-Embiid minutes. Who can fare better and the non-Brunson minutes versus the non-Embiid minutes. And in the first half, what Tibbs does is Embiid sits for the beginning of the second quarter and he leaves Brunson out there for some of those minutes. And the Knicks do, I think they won those minutes.
By
second
one,
half,
maybe.
Yeah. But that's, it's a good way to withstand for Philly when the advantage should be, the advantage should be massively New York. And then you get to the fourth quarter and the reverse happens. Nick Nurse leaves Embiid out there at the start of the fourth. Brunson sits a little bit into the fourth. He puts Maxey back in before Brunson comes in. So for the first 4 minutes and 16 seconds of the fourth quarter, you've got Embiid out there and you've got Maxey out there for some of it. And the Sixers lose those minutes. Mm-hmm. And that's when I was like, that's a disaster. The Sixers cannot lose those minutes and win this game. Turns out they could lose those minutes and win that game because crazy basketball gods inspired stuff had to happen for them to lose it. But that's when I was like, man, like, I feel like if this is close, that's the difference. That's what all this is. They are designed to destroy you in those moments.
Yeah.
They couldn't create good enough offense. Knicks played really, really well defensively in those minutes. And Bojan Bogdanović, just like those, Bogdanović is not shooting a good percentage in this series. And yet I feel like all of his baskets have been worth twice as much. Every one of them is just like incredibly timely, exactly when the Knicks need it.
Like you could make the argument that I don't know if it's too much to say this. I guess I'll see what Stephen A. Smith's favorite player, Quentin Grimes, does next year and beyond. But there's an argument that like they won the trade based on how Bojan has helped prop up their bench. Or the trade was worth it for them. Maybe not won the trade. That's the wrong phrase. But the trade was worth it for them for what he's done.
Maybe. Still think it's too early.
Kind of too early. Yes.
But this is what they envisioned with the Bogdanović part. They also envisioned Alec Burks running their second unit. And part of the reason why he's not is because of the way he played. And the other part is like, I think even if Burks played at a acceptable rate, I think it's possible he'd be out of the rotation because McBride has just been so good. Like McBride has been so good that it's possible that even if Burks came and shot, his usual 42 from on twos and 40 from three and kind of played his usual style, like it's possible he'd still be playing behind McBride because McBride has been so good. I think this with Bogdanović is what they envisioned. And it's that much more important when Julius Randle is out for the year too. At the time they made the trade, they thought there was a really realistic chance Randle was going to be coming back. And without him there, having him as your backup three can be very helpful. It can be very helpful. And he's hit some really timely shots in these first two games.
Talk about like if you had told me before the series started, that the best players in their role, so is which kind of adds a little bit more context for the Knicks, have been in some order. Not going to put them in order: Deuce McBride, Bojan Bogdanović, Josh Hart. And don't worry, I was getting to him.
Okay. Thought we were slipping.
No. It's funny,
3-point assassin, Josh Hart.
I incorrectly deemed game one the Josh Hart game, and then I quickly realized the error of my ways when I gave it a little bit more consideration. Last night, even though he didn't score a point in the second half, I think last night you could say was the Josh Hart game. Although it obviously would be remembered for the DiVincenzo shot. But so McBride, Bogey, Hart, and then the centers, Mitch Moore game one, and then Hartenstein in game two. And, like DiVincenzo shot the ball wonderfully last night, but I would probably still put him, we can combine the centers into one. I would still probably put him below those guys. And they're up 2-0. And
may I add one thing?
Please, yes.
I thought DiVincenzo had a really good defensive game last night. Like in game one, people concentrate on the shooting and the fact that he just wasn't hitting threes in the way that he normally does and him not playing in the fourth quarter. And I felt like part of the reason why I was justified him not playing in the fourth quarter of that game wasn't just McBride. It was because he had taken multiple needless gambles on Tyrese Maxey. And Maxey is so quick that you can't just try to jump behind him and poke out the basketball, because you will get beat so often that even one steal every once in a while is not justifiable. You can't give him a head of steam going downhill. And I thought he clearly made a concerted effort to be like, screw going for the steals, screw the gambling. Every time I'm on Maxey, I have to slide my feet like a madman every single time and just do whatever I can to stay in front of him. It's a lot easier said than done. There were some times Maxey got by him. There were also some times that I thought DiVincenzo did a great job staying in front. There were a couple of plays there was one play that ends on a foul from DiVincenzo. I thought it was kind of a soft foul, but it was probably a foul. And it ends on a foul from DiVincenzo where Maxey's going left and he throws up a little off balance shot and DiVincenzo nicked him. But he did a really good job staying in front of him. Fundamentally, he guarded with his feet and his chest. And I thought that was really big for them. It was a night where Tyrese Maxey could have had 50.
Yeah.
You know, like it was a night where he could have had 50. I just thought Maxey was just magnificent. He was just awesome.
I'm trying to think if there's been a better performance. I mean, so the playoffs are only 3 days old. Has there been a better performance over the first 3 days of the playoffs? I don't think so.
Other than Josh Hart?
Other than Josh Hart, yeah. Yeah, no. Maxey's been awesome, and he was, reportedly sick, and he said after the game, I think they got IV or an IV before the game or whatever.
Anthony Edwards. He was.
Oh, yeah. Edwards pretty dangerous.
He was something else. Guarding KD that whole game.
Yeah. Yeah, he's a good player. Anyway, so that's let's transition to that, and then I want to go back to Brunson, and then I want to go to Tibbs, because you just wrote a great article on Tibbs, and I think we could weave it into this game. Maxey looked like he did. He's played really well. Embiid. Let me just ask you, what do you think of Embiid last night?
I respect a lot that he continues to play when he's so obviously not feeling his best.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's super admirable. But he's also very obviously not feeling his best. And his conditioning isn't all the way there. It's not just the injury. You can tell the more he plays, and this is an Embiid thing, right? Like he's not getting back in transition. And the thing that guys get killed for all the time, like we see it with Julius Randle, they don't run back on defense. Embiid, when he's really wiped, will sometimes just not run back on offense even. And you'll see him kind of come down, and sometimes he'll use it to his advantage. Sometimes he'll just wait and the Sixers will run some offense, and then he'll get the ball with 13 seconds left on the shot clock, and he'll just have a running start toward the rim, and he'll just use it to go straight at the rim. But he's not really doing that now because he's also hurt and is not really going to the rim and has kind of just become a jump shooter. I think the Knicks bigs have done a really good job on him.
Agree.
Defensively, I think they've done a really good job. Mitchell Robinson in game one was unbelievable.
Otherworldly. Yeah. Unbelievable.
Isaiah Hartenstein said it was Mitch's best game of the season. Considering the context and the competition, I think that's a reasonable take.
I agree.
And Hartenstein, especially in that second half, was tremendous on both sides of the floor. I think the Knicks centers have done a very good job on him. And they have to, because the Knicks are really not doubling. You'll see when Embiid starts to get deep, you'll see the low man, the guy guarding the shooter in the weak side. You'll see him start to shade over toward Embiid just in case you need to double. But they're not hard doubling him. They're not trying to get the ball out of his hands. They're saying, go do your thing. I think it's been a really smart strategy by Tibbs. And I think it's been an extremely well executed strategy by the players. The thing with Embiid is like, the physicality, I think, is getting to him at times. He had 0 rebounds in the second half yesterday.
Yep.
The Sixers are getting blasted on the offense. They got blasted on the offensive glass in game one. They were better.
When it counted last night.
Yep. They were better in game two, but look at what happens at the end. It's funny. I sit next to Tim Bontemps from ESPN at the games, and I'm talking to Tim, and Tim says to me when Embiid's playing at the start of the fourth quarter, He's like, this is going to be interesting. The big fella's out there for the start of the fourth. Like he might be gassed at the end.
Yeah.
And I said to him, and I said,
Tim.
Great call by Tim. And I said, and then I said to him, I said, yep. And Josh Hart will be there on minute 48, grabbing rebounds away from him. And what do you know? Inside the final 30 seconds, Josh Hart's the one grabbing the ball away from Maxey, and Embiid is getting an offensive rebound pulled down over him from Isaiah Hartenstein when
wasn't even in
for the ball.
Wasn't even in it.
Wasn't even really in it. And it's not one of those things where it's like a Brooke Lopez, I'm boxing you out so somebody else can get the rebound. Like there were 4 Sixers in the vicinity on the Hartenstein offensive rebound, which his timing on that play was amazing. I mean, talk about going up and getting the ball at its peak. It was fantastically timed offensive board. But I think the physicality is getting to him. You're not seeing him in the post as much. You're not seeing him try to beast guys down low, and defensively, you're not seeing him be able to move in the same way that he normally would.
That's what I wanted to get to, because this is going to be a transition to Brunson, but I want to stick on Embiid and Maxey for a second. I think Embiid just being a massive human being that is incredibly skilled, like that's to me him defensively. When I see, because I went back and I rewatched all of Brunson's shot attempts from last night and really tried to like watch him a few times, and like just Embiid when he's there and he's looming, he's not even doing anything, but his presence there is enough that it's, I don't want to say bugging Brunson out, but he knows he's there. You know, that's enough, you know?
Yeah, without question. That's what the great defenders do. Like when Embiid is at his best.
Oh, well, that's
how many, when Embiid is at his absolute best, I can tell you Joel Embiid is 100% healthy and he's going 100% hard tonight. How many defenders in the NBA do you take over him?
Big men? Well, yeah, no, because of
all defenders.
I don't think the list is 5 names long, and even that might be a little bit generous.
I think you could say the list is 0 names long.
You could make the argument. I mean, Wemby's
I think the argument against Embiid defensively is that he will get tired.
Yes.
And won't run back on defense, and maybe won't always close out on a shooter how he should because of that. And he's not always 100%.
5 minutes. If you need 5 minutes of defense from a big, yeah, he might be the one. One of the crazy things with Embiid is not just how he affects shots at the rim. And you kind of alluded to this with Brunson. He really affects shot selection. Rudy Gobert is like this too, where when he is on the court, you know, like when he's on the court, historically, the Sixers give up fewer threes too. Like I don't know if I realized that.
His presence bugs people out.
Yeah.
And that is the ultimate thing that you want to do on defense. What you are trying to do on defense is you are trying to muck up the other team's process. You are trying to put them in positions to where they're less comfortable and hoping that because they're less comfortable, they'll mess up. Embiid is the ultimate one at that. And that's still an effect that he has even when he's not 100%. However, when he's not 100%, he just can't stray from the rim the way that he could otherwise. I mean, look at what Hartenstein was doing in the short roll yesterday. When he was at his best, it's because Hartenstein's getting to his floater, and it's because Embiid can't close out on it. You know, he's just not moving to that degree. I was surprised, very surprised. The Knicks spent so much of the fourth quarter not running like high pick and rolls at Embiid. A lot of their pick and rolls were side pick and rolls. A lot of them were screen set like at the 3-point arc. I was thinking like bring Embiid's man up, set a Hartenstein screen. Hartenstein screen is really difficult. I said Hartenstein screen. It's really difficult. That's a real tongue twister.
It is.
Set a Hartenstein screen.
Yeah.
28 feet from the basket, all the way high up. Make Embiid come all the way up. Make him defend against the Brunson pull-up. It gives him more room to wiggle to the middle, where Kelly Oubre has done legitimately an unbelievable job defensively in this series. I think he's been magnificent defensively
through the first half. He didn't guard Brunson for that much in the second half. I only counted 2 possessions on shot attempts. There may have been more possessions or it wasn't on shot attempts. But yeah, I agree with you. He's done a wonderful job on Brunson.
Yeah. And Batum has done a good job when he's been on him. And Lowry's done a good job when he's been on him. Yeah. Harris done a good job. I mean, even on those switches when he tries to get Maxey on him, I think Maxey's done a good job too. Like Maxey's not a defender, but I think he has fought hard. He's been good on those switches. He's forcing him into tough shots. And I think part of it is Brunson settling for shots that are tougher than they need to be. But like, I thought it was weird they weren't going at Embiid. I think that's something maybe they could pick at more as the series goes on. If Embiid continues to look hobbled, that's something. But look, I mean, the dude still goes for 34. Like he still finds ways to score that pretty much nobody in the league can do.
I want to get back to your thought about Brunson high pick and rolls in a second, but just one more thought on the Sixers guys. Like, obviously they're outwardly displaying a lot of confidence. Nick Nurse seems to still be confident, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, I get it because defensively, what they were doing against Brunson as of right now is working like a charm. Maxey is getting his. Embiid, as you just said, is hobbled and is not himself, but he is, as you said, still 34. He's getting his. Like, other Sixers have come through with some big shots here in the first 2 games. And yet, is Embiid going to get better offensively? I don't know that we could say that. Maxey had a great game last night, also went 5 of 11 from 3. Like, are they going to be able to come count on that again? I don't know. So I guess my question is, like, if you're Nick Nurse, how confident do you think you would be right now? Confident may be the wrong word, but like, how would you be feeling?
And you're down 2-0. Look, I'm not going to be like a podcaster I know and say the series is over. It's definitively not.
I don't think it's over.
It's definitively not over. I mean, look, you lose the first 2 on the road. It's a cliche, but sometimes cliches are cliches for a reason. You're supposed to lose the first 2 on the road. You go home, you take care of home court, and all of a sudden it's 2-2. And you're going back to New York, and it's anybody's series. How confident?
No, that was the wrong word. Because, like, again, how confident can you be down 2-0? You're halfway to being eliminated, but like, confident in your game plan, confident in that what you're doing should work.
Yeah, they should be confident. I mean, I think Nurse has done a really good job in this series.
Done a wonderful job.
Defensively, they've been great. They've been imaginative. They've thrown a million different, like, they're not just throwing one coverage at Brunson. They're throwing a million different ones. They're having Lowry help all the way off of Josh Hart, and then Oubre almost defend Brunson from his backside when he gets past the screener. They've hedged. They've played a drop with Embiid. They've done a million different things. They've guarded Brunson with all those defenders that we talked about earlier. They've switched on pick and rolls against Brunson. I think they've done a really good job chasing him around when he's off the ball. You know, one thing that the Knicks, I think, made more of an effort to do in the second half was to, like, have Hart bring up the ball and try to get Brunson the ball in the half court, run him around some screens, and figure out how to just get him freed. And there were times where that looked good and worked really well for the Knicks, like in the third quarter when they're doing it with dribble handoffs with Hartenstein and that kind of stuff. But I thought Philly defended those actions really well. They're communicating really well. They're doing a really good job. Some of it is just execution. You mentioned Maxey and Embiid combining for 69 points, but it's like, Tobias, here's one thing that I wonder. Okay, if we're talking about things Philly could change, Tobias Harris played 41 minutes last night.
That was a lot.
I was really surprised he played 41 minutes. He is struggling and has struggled for a while now.
He was good defensively. He was really good defensively against Brunson in particular, I thought, in the second half.
He was good defensively. The Knicks also play a lineup where you could put Batum in for him, and I don't think it's going to change that much defensively. And you can go Batum, Oubre, Lowry, and Maxey with Embiid. And I don't think it's going to change all that much. Mm-hmm. And Batum might hit a corner 3. And he might just give you a little bit more in terms of
playmaking,
being reliable, cutting. Harris is going to hang out in the corner, and he's not doing much else. He took some bad shots. Like, I don't like his offensive process at all in this series. I know he's frustrated the hell out of Sixers fans all year. And he's been good. He's been good defensively. All the Sixers have been good defensively. I can't think of a 76ers player where I'm like, that guy has been bad defensively. They're extremely locked in, and they are trying to grit up this series as much as anything. But I wonder if that's a move that you make. And then you look at, like, so much of it for Philly is the play better adjustment, where it's like, but Buddy Hield, you got to hit shots. Like, your job is to hit shots. You got to hit shots.
Yep.
Like, it's not like DiVincenzo, where it's like DiVincenzo is a 3-point shooter, but he's also a good defender, and he can also make some plays. He can also get out in transition. Like, Buddy Hield's job is to hit threes. It's to hit shots. And that's not really happening off the bench right now. So there are certain things where you're like, okay, well, that's got to change. But, you know, you can make the same argument for the Knicks. And I think for the Knicks, it's even more extreme because it's Jalen Brunson who can't make a shot.
That's the thing, is it's like, if you look at the Sixers role players versus the Knicks role players, it's not a conversation. Like, it's not in the same stratosphere between who's performing and who's not performing, because look at the Sixers stars and look at the Knicks star singular, which right there, like, that's the thing. I can't get past. Jalen Brunson, 2 bad shooting games. Sixers stars, there's 2 of them. So it's 4 good to very good offensive performances overall, and they're up 2-0. So here's the thing with Brunson. So, like you just brought up, high screen. They had one side pick and roll, but it was like a high side pick and roll with Hartenstein in the first half, and Embiid defended at the level, and Brunson got by him barely. Still had to make a pretty acrobatic layup. It wasn't a reverse layup, but it was like, you know the one I'm talking about. It was nice. It was a nice finish. But then there were so many other possessions where just Embiid dropped, and Brunson had a decent mid-range look. And I'm like, I went through all the possessions and I tried to grade it for myself of like, these are like unequivocally tough shots. They're tough shots that, like, Jalen Brunson has made a lot of tough shots this year, but they're still tough. They're, with the caveat that, like, Brunson wants to get closer to the rim, right? Would you agree with that as a general proposition? He wants to get closer. Even if it becomes tougher, he wants to get closer.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, he opened the game with that long 21-footer, which was open, but it was a 21-footer. That's like, he doesn't want to shoot from 21 feet. He wants to shoot from like 16, 15, 14, you know, and in. And that's kind of the range he was shooting from. And he had some room on some of these shots, and they're just, because Embiid's giving him the room, and they're just not going down. And then when you think about, like, well, okay, should he be just trying to take more threes? Maybe is that the solution? He's 2 of 12 from 3 in this series. Have those been like hard looks? I don't know that most of them have been hard looks. I mean, they've been pull-ups. Pull-ups are hard. He's been 33% on pull-ups since Randall went out. So I'm like, I don't know what the answer is other than, like, he needs to just start making a few more of these that we've seen him make all year. And I don't know, am I underthinking it? I don't know that I'm overthinking it. I don't really know where else to go with this.
I think that's very fair. I think some of it, if not most of it, is how well Philly has guarded him. I think it's really important to emphasize that. Sixers are playing a really good defensive series. Some of it is also that the paint is just not open. Like, he wants to get close. Like, what does Tibbs say all the time? The game tells you what to do. And the paint's not open. Defenders are helping off of Josh Hart. Embiid is camped out down low on top of that. You come to the paint, you're going to have 2 guys already there waiting for you. And that allows them to play the strategy they've been doing, where Brunson's primary defender, Batum, Oubre, whomever, is basically guarding him from behind and can trail and kind of contest his shot from behind. I think there have been a number of times in games 1 and 2 where Brunson was like, you know what? I'm going to keep my defender in jail here. I'm going to go up. I'm going to draw the foul. I'm going to draw the Jalen Brunson, Trae Young foul that everybody gets. Yep. And with all this emphasis on how much the game has changed in terms of how it's been called the last 2.5, 3 months, it's changing again, but in a way that it always does, in that you just aren't getting those calls in the playoffs.
No.
Or I shouldn't say you aren't getting those calls, but you're not getting those calls as frequently in the playoffs. Everyone knows that's just how it works. And I think on those kinds of plays, maybe an adjustment Jalen Brunson can make is just shoot the shot. Like, don't try to get bumped. Don't snap your head back. Just shoot the shot. Just shoot your shot. And if it goes in, great. Because it's not like Brunson has success only because he's good at drawing fouls.
No, exactly.
Brunson has success because he's really good at making shots, and that's his shot. And I think if he goes up and he just tries to make the shot and doesn't think about anything else, I think you're going to see him shoot a better percentage on those. I really do. I also think his process at times throughout the games has been uncharacteristic. Part of his evolution this year wasn't just the shot making. It was how quickly he was reading the game and making the right play every time. He's going to get blitz. The defense is going to throw multiple defenders at him. That's fine. He's just going to dump it off to Isaiah Hartenstein. He got way better at passing to his roll man. And then he's going to move off the ball and he's going to get the ball back, or Hartenstein's going to get a basket, or he's going to create a play for somebody, and they're going to be able to operate that way. He's just going to make what the right play is. And I think there are a number of times where he's gotten to the middle and he's been like, I'm going up here. And you see other moments where he gets into more of a facilitating mode, into more of a read and react sort of mode. Third quarter of the game yesterday, for example, thought he did a really good job making the right play over and over. The offense was humming. One of the things I wonder if the Knicks will do is every single moment where you would say the Knicks offense looks really good in this series, every single moment where you would say that, it's when they are basically using Hartenstein as a screener in a meaningful action on every single play. And that's something I wonder if they're just going to be like, yep, we just kind of have to do that all the time when Hartenstein is on the floor. And that's an adjustment I wonder if they're going to be able to make, just go to that more. Third quarter, when they're revving, it's Hartenstein DHOs, it's Hartenstein pick and rolls. It's going very well for their offense, and it's by no coincidence because of what's happening there. I spoke to Hartenstein about the rear view contests and stuff with Brunson after the game last night. And he was telling me that one thing. I was like, is there anything you can do as a screener? He said he thinks he needs to be setting better screens on those plays, just to get Brunson's defender a little bit more hung up. And he said he thinks he's not giving Brunson easy enough looks and allowing his defender to stick with him. So I'll look at it. I don't know if that was him being humble or if it was like a real self-evaluation, but I'll look at it and see. I thought that was just an interesting comment for him to make. And with Brunson also, it's like sometimes he's making his life difficult. Late in that game, they're just going pick and roll with the guy Maxey is guarding, and they're going to get the switch. And the reason that the Sixers give that switch so much is because I think the Sixers are perfectly fine with Brunson being like, yeah, sure, Joel Embiid can't move, but don't run these pick and rolls against him. Don't make him guard in space when you could just go at Tyrese Maxey, who's doing a pretty good job. And those shots were not easy. Maxey stuck with Brunson well, and I thought Brunson settled for some difficult ones where they were just kind of trying to pulverize a mismatch, which didn't end up being enough of a mismatch to justify the way they were operating. So I think there are ways that Brunson has made his life more difficult than he needs to be. I also think the Sixers have done an extremely good job from both a strategic and execution standpoint in making sure that continues.
Completely agree that the Sixers have done excellent work in terms of their one-on-one defense and their game plan, which has me worried a little bit because I agree with you. Like, getting Hartenstein more involved is important. I don't know if I mentioned earlier in the pod, but like, Brunson had 5 assists in the second half. All of them were to Isaiah Hartenstein, and obviously Hartenstein has to convert baskets for that. But like, that connection was clearly working, even if it didn't yield a shot for Brunson, even if it yielded something else. The I lost track of how many times in the first half that the in terms of like, Tibbs saying the game tells you what to do. The game was saying to pass to Josh Hart because Josh Hart's man was very far off of Josh Hart, and Brunson had one assist in the first half. It was one assist period. It did happen to be to Hart, but Hart, it was ironically enough and above the break three that came towards the end of the half. But all the times that Hart was in the corner, which were a lot of instances, like that's just not where Brunson was going with that. And I don't know. Do they want him passing it to Josh Hart when Josh Hart is open in the corner? Like, I don't know. You tell me. I mean, you've spent a lot of time with Tibbs this year.
I think it depends on how Brunson is rolling. Like if Brunson's on fire,
that's different.
If he's really feeling good, go for it. But when he's not working, look, that's actually, I should clarify. When I say I think, I really mean I think there. Now, if I put on my Tibbs hat and I get into Tibbs's mind, which is what a good reporter would do, as opposed to just saying what they think. You know what? If I'm putting on my Tibbs hat, Tibbs would say, make the pass to Hart. That's what Tibbs would say. Okay. Tibbs would say, the game tells you what to do. That's what Tibbs would say. You read and react. That's what Tibbs would say. And then Hart can take the three. I asked Tibbs last night because the fourth three that Hart made,
the pull up,
the
most insane shot I've ever seen in my life. Just
unhinged, that shot.
Leaning.
And look, he was going for the 2-for-1. And what's funny is
it's great.
As he's coming down the court, I'm like, I guess they're not going to get the 2-for-1. Josh is going to go to the rim. He's going to Euro step to the right, and he's going to try a layup, and it's going to be like 28 seconds left in the half, and they're not going to get the 2-for-1. Normally you want to get that 2-for-1 at like by 30.
Yeah.
Like by 30 seconds is really your marker, or else you're it's not really as worth it. And it just didn't even cross my mind that Hart could pull up, because like 2-for-1s are great when they're done well, but you don't want to just throw up a shot just for the sake of throwing up any shot, because the whole point is that like you get 2 possessions and your average points per possession on those 2 might be lower, but you get 1 more possession than the other team. So combine them and it's going to be higher than the 1 possession the other team gets. But if you just throw up a shot that just has like a -4% chance of going in, then you're not playing those odds in the same way.
Mathematically possible? I guess it is.
Yeah, it is with this specific situation. And when Hart pulled up for 3, I was just like, what in the world is happening here? And then when it went in, I was like, that is insanity. And so I asked Tibbs after the game, it's like, what's crossing your mind when Josh Hart puts up that 3? And you know what? I'm going to call up the quote.
I love it.
Because
look at this. Who's better than
because
this guy?
I thought it was interesting. And I really think he was being completely honest in this moment.
Really? Okay.
Yes, I really do. Because this is, look, Tibbs is consistent. And the man is all about, if you are putting in the work, you can get away with stuff. And if you're not putting in the work, you can't get away with anything. And this is what Tibbs said. I said, what's going through your mind when Josh rises for that? I think I might have called it crazy. That crazy 3 on the 2-for-1 with 30 seconds left in the first half. And Tibbs says, good shot. Good shot. Let it fly. I want all our guys playing with confidence. I think that's important. As long as you're working on your game and I see the time he's put into it, let it fly. Let it fly. If you're not working on your game, then I'm not surprised when it doesn't go in. But when you're working on your game, like I tell you about Deuce all the time, the same thing could be said for Josh. I think that's true. I think it wasn't the answer I expected, because it's Josh and Tibbs just love to razz each other. Josh loves to troll Tibbs, and Tibbs is very much in on the joke and enjoys kind of returning Josh's serves, though he doesn't do it nearly as often as Josh, but he enjoys doing it every once in a while. And he also I feel like Josh is kind of one of the guys who, in a moment of being a maniac, Tibbs doesn't feel off pointing it out in a public fashion. If as much as Tibbs just loves Josh Hart, and he very much does, he doesn't mind pointing it out because of Josh Hart's personality. You can really say anything. You can say anything to him, and it
to Josh.
And it doesn't stick. But the one thing that Josh is, I would say, not confident in, is, we all see it, is that jumper. He will lose confidence in it really quickly. I've talked about it on this podcast. I wrote about it after game one and kind of how he prepped for the way that he knew Philly was going to guard him. And I just thought it was notable. I thought it was interesting. And I thought it was a really great window into how coaches think and how coaches want to encourage their guys. When he was like, no, good shot. He didn't hesitate at all. He was like, good shot. Let it fly. You're putting in the work. Yeah. Then go show off that work you're doing. You're not putting in the work, then I'm not surprised when the ball doesn't go in, which I thought was a phenomenal addition to the quote. You are putting in the work, go for it. He's like, that's why Deuce can take all the shots he wants. I see him putting in the work, and that's how I know he's going to be good. And so I just thought I thought that was I thought it was really interesting.
So let's transition to where we'll finish up, which is on Tibbs, because you just wrote, needless to say, my favorite piece from you this year on the head coach and his team, full of guys who seem to they don't seem to be in the roughly half of NBA players who say that Tom Thibodeau was the last head coach they like to play for, but they seem to be in a different camp where he is a guy that demands a lot, but maybe doesn't demand as much as some people would think. I guess if you listen to Dante DiVincenzo's quote in your story, and also puts in more time than anyone and gets his players more prepared than anyone, as Isaiah Hartenstein told you for the story. So I guess I'm wondering. Well, one, I want to ask you just what it was like to report on that, and any anecdotes you want to share. But then also, I wonder how you think Tibbs is feeling through 2 games. I mean, obviously, I'm sure he's happy they're up 2-0, but
no, he's not. No, he's not.
No,
he's not.
He's not happy.
I promise he's not happy they're up 2-0. Okay. He has no idea what the score of the series is. He just knows they're playing in Philly on Thursday.
That's all.
That's it. I really wonder what, if he ever wins a title. I mean, the beat writers have a joke about this. Like, what is Tibbs going to say in the press conference? If he ever wins a title, like, what's he going to say? He can't go out there and be like, just got to get ready for Summer League. Like, what's he going to do? Every time you ask him, but John, for real, anytime any reporter asks him a question, are you happy with? Without fail, he has never missed the opportunity, at least not in the 3 years that I've covered him. Without fail, every time he will interrupt you and say, I'm never happy. Without fail, every time. Also, if you ask him, are you concerned with? And sometimes I'll slip up walls. So are you concerned with whatever? Every time he'll interrupt you and say, I'm concerned about everything. Every time, without fail, never slips up. The man is a modicum of consistency. I don't think, I mean, look, obviously it's got to affect his coaching, what has happened in the first 2 games. Sure. But in terms of like on an emotional level, on a strategic level, it affects him. On an emotional level, I just think he is one of the most emotionally unaffected people that I've been around in my career. You look at even late in that game, with all the hecticness, with all the chaos that's happening on the court, Tibbs makes an offense-defense sub that helps him win the game. It's like this extreme attention to detail in moments of total and complete chaos, when when you're thinking, oh, the Sixers broadcast is thinking the game is over, and your mind is probably completely and utterly blank just complete mashed potato. It hasn't recovered yet. I mean, not even mashed potatoes, just like mashed potatoes that were then whipped after the fact. Like there are no chunks of potatoes. There's no garlic in this.
Not in my head.
Yeah. This is just the blandest. The potatoes aren't even cooked. They're just smashed so fine as they're uncooked. That's just how beaten to a pulp these potatoes have been.
That's accurate.
And like even Isaiah Hartenstein says to me after the game, I asked him, like, what are you thinking when you go for that offensive rebound? Like what's going through your head? And Hartenstein is this very cerebral player. And when I ask him that kind of stuff, what's your read on so-and-so? He normally gives me really interesting basketball answers. Mm-hmm. You know, what's your, when Brunson comes around in that DHO, hey, what's your read? Where are you looking here? He normally gives me really interesting basketball answers. I learn a lot. And his answer when I asked him, like, what your offensive, like the ball leaves Dante's fingertips, like, what's your read? Where are you looking? What are you thinking? He's like, honestly, like that time, nothing. Like, go get the ball. Just go get the ball. That is it. He's like, sometimes he's like, it's funny, it's weird. And sometimes like it's just instinct. And that's when you make the best plays. And first of all, what a great insight that he gave us into the way that he thinks there. And second of all, my mind immediately, and this is what my story off of last night's game was about. My mind, when he said that, immediately went to, all right, well, that's when muscle memory takes over. And what happens on that play? Hartenstein gets the offensive rebound. And as he gets the offensive rebound, he's falling down, maybe in danger of a travel, because apparently everyone just falls down now. Yes. When it matters most, everyone falls down. Brunson falls down. Maxey falls down. Hartenstein falls down. Everyone falls down. And what does Hartenstein do as he's falling down? He looks to the baseline, sees OG Anunoby near the corner, and he bounces the ball to OG Anunoby.
What a pass.
In a time where he said, great pass. In a time where he said, he's just thinking, go get the ball. But why did he look there? The reason he looked there is because the Knicks constantly drill in practices, in everything you can imagine. They constantly drill scramble situations exactly like that. Big man goes up, gets the offensive rebound. What do you do next? This is a situation the Knicks have deemed. I wrote about this like 2 years ago. This is a situation in relation to Mitchell Robinson, though. This is a situation the Knicks have deemed ripe for getting standstill, open, catch and shoot threes. One of the things they want to do, one of the reasons they love offensive rebounds so much is not necessarily just because it gets them second chance opportunities. They're one of the most efficient offenses in the league on those second chance opportunities, in part because they create so many threes on their second chance opportunities. And what they do is Tibbs has really simplified the process for his big men. So this is true for Hartenstein. This is true for Precious Achiuwa. It's true for Hartenstein. It's true for the bigs. I'm not sure. Maybe it's a little different when a guy like Josh Hart gets the offensive board. But the rule of thumb, because those might be longer boards or whatever, and Hart's, just a different sort of, he's a different cat, let's say. But with the bigs, at least, Hartenstein is supposed to get the rebound. When he gets the rebound, if he lands in the restricted area, then he can go back up. If he's outside the restricted area, then the goal is to pass it back out. We've seen this is like the only type of pass that Mitchell Robinson is legitimately really good at. Because it's been simplified to such. I
remember the article that you wrote about this. Yeah. And
you're not just supposed to pass it back out. There are specific reads. So the first read that you do is you're supposed to look to the corner. Whoever is on the wing, if someone's not already in the corner, whoever's on the wing is supposed to streak into the corner. As that guy is streaking to the corner, whoever gets the rebound, in this case, Hartenstein is supposed to look to the corner. If no one's in the corner, then you look to the corresponding wing. Someone will be there. Pretty good chance that person's open and you're able to get it back out there. If not, you can take your time. You got 14 seconds. You can take your time. You can take a second. You can figure out what you're going to do from there. But those are your reads. As Hartenstein is falling down, what does he do? He looks to the corner and he sees Anunoby there. And then Anunoby swings it to DiVincenzo and that gets them the open catch and shoot three. and it looks like total and complete chaos. How the hell did Hartenstein find Anunoby in that spot? But Hartenstein, amidst him admitting, I'm just thinking, go get the ball, amidst all of that, amidst all the chaos, Hartenstein, his muscle memory takes over. And his muscle memory, because the Knicks drill this like crazy people, his muscle memory says, look to the corner. If the guy's in the corner, just throw it to the corner. You don't have to think. And this is the preparation stuff. You know, this is the stuff when Hartenstein says, I feel more prepared. This is it. It's not just about, oh, I know this guy likes to draw fouls in this way. It's also this stuff. It's muscle memory. They've drilled it a million times. And you find Anunoby and they kick it out. So it looks like chaos. But the reality is they're just really prepared to make that play because Tibbs has forced them to do it so many times they've lost count. And it doesn't feel out of the ordinary. And that to me is the stuff where good coaching will never show, like you'll never know. That looks like an unbelievable play by the players. And it obviously is.
Yeah.
But you would never think what phenomenal coaching when you see that, you know, because you just see that in the context that it happened and that's it. But once you start to put it in the context of all the stuff that's happening behind the scenes, you're like, this is what a team that is prepared looks like. This is what the most extreme version of a team who's just going to be more prepared than anybody is going to look like. This is what happens when you have a guy running the team who thinks about everything, you know? And so I think I just thought that was a really interesting sort of microcosm of the way that the Knicks have thrived in chaos and crazy hustle plays all season, but also just been this insanely prepped team in every way possible.
And I am thankful for you that you are reporting on this in the way that you are, because I think it is going to open a lot of people's eyes, maybe who have had their issues with Tibbs over the years, like just to show like that it's not always about the X's and O's, and it's not always about substitution patterns. It's about the stuff that like wins you a game in that situation. Because as you said, like that's, and again, you don't have to, if you're listening to this, you don't have to take Fred's word for it. Just go read his article and see what Isaiah Hartenstein said about how he's never felt more prepared in a game, and how he, like, what was Dante's quote about like everybody's having career years here, or like I'm having a career, other guys are having career years. I thought it was interesting that he said that. So like he didn't talk around it. Like he just explicitly was like, I'm having a career year. He was like, Tibbs is a massive reason why I'm having a career year. Everybody's having a career year. And then Dante said, look, I mean, we've been missing two of our best three players for half the season, and we're about to win 50 games. He said this to me. We're on the verge of potentially winning 50 games. However he phrased it, said this to me before the last game of the season. I thought it was interesting that he just like, I mean, there was no other way to interpret it. Yeah. You know, he didn't leave any room for interpretation. It was just like, nope, this is true. This is just how he feels. And I think that's echoed throughout the locker room, where, look, it's not like every single person who's on that team is like, oh yeah, I've been all in from the beginning. Yeah. I think there are a lot of players who meet Tibbs and or hear about Tibbs. And I think no one has told me this, to be clear. Okay.
But I think there are probably guys on that team who we've done that poll before that you mentioned. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which coach would you least like to play for? And every year Tibbs has won by a lot. And I would be willing to bet a very large sum of money that somebody who's in that locker room right now voted for Tibbs in the past.
At some point.
If not multiple.
That's great.
And I think there are people who come into it being like, how is this going to be? How in the world is this going to be? And what has happened with this group, and to be clear, it doesn't happen with everybody, but I think what has happened with this specific team, where the Knicks have gone out of their way to try to find personalities who will fit the culture they want. I think what's happened with a lot of people on this team, and what's happened with guys who have coached Tibbs in the past, is you're like, yeah, yeah, this man is as much of a maniac as I anticipated. However, everything he tells me is correct. So maybe I should just listen. And then they start to listen and they're like, oh, wow, like actually everything he's telling me to do is really helping me. And they start to grow this sort of appreciation for that, where maybe at times they're like, he's making me lose my mind here, but they're able to compartmentalize that because they're like I have had players who have played for Tibbs tell me this straight up. Guys who are still on the team don't necessarily talk in this way with this kind of detail, but guys who are like done. I've had players say to me like, yeah, I mean, he's a maniac, but like everything he told me was right. So like I play for him 100 times out of 100. Like he just made me so much better.
That's why there's a part of me that thinks like maybe the most illuminating quote, and it was not in your story, but it was, and I don't know if it was in a scrum or I don't even remember which beat writer tweeted it out. Maybe it was Bonnie. I don't know, but it was from Bogey. And it was in the last couple of days where somebody asked him, I guess, about playing time or so that point was raised. And he essentially said like, I'm going to play however much I'm supposed to play. Tibbs is going to play the players that he thinks are giving him the best in the game. And I'm cool with that. Like, I'm not mischaracterizing that, am I?
No, I think that's exactly what he said.
And this is a guy averages 30 minutes a game. Averaged 30 minutes a game before he came here. Averaged close to 35 minutes a game points in his career, and had a DNP CD in the second half of a game since he came to New York. And he's sitting there being like, yeah, I get it. Like that. He's probably gonna be on a different team next year. It's not like he's like, and if that is not, to me at least, a testament to the cult, like these two wins are honestly a testament to the culture that they've built. You don't win these games if you don't have a rock solid culture. And I think they do. And I'm just really happy your story exists, because I think it shows how, whether it's Tibbs like the biggest reason for it, like top 3 reason for it, I don't know. They don't have it without him. I know that.
I knew you'd be happy. I wrote that story just for you, John. That story was only for you.
Dear John.
The lead. I was going to say the lead was Dear John, but unfortunately we ran into copyright problems because that's the name of a movie.
Yeah, I've heard.
And we ran into some problems, but it was going to be Dear John. Instead, I just put an F-bomb in the lead,
which was much better.
I was going to say, which was a little bit worse. I think if I started it with Dear John, people would have been like, what?
Well, I am just waiting. I'm just waiting for the day you get Corey effing Kispert on your pod.
I'd be willing to bet a decent amount of money that Corey Kispert is well aware of that anecdote by now, because that made its way onto Wizards Twitter pretty quickly with Corey fucking Kispert. I like how that's the time where you decided to censor yourself. I've heard you drop 9 million.
Well, somebody added me on Twitter at some point in the middle of the night saying I need to curse less because he's a cab driver and he can't play the pod in his cab because it offends his patrons. So it's something I'm gonna work on.
Well, he should
just like Tibbs evolves, right? Just like Tibbs evolves, John Macri needs to evolve too.
Well, I think if you're going to evolve, I think we should start with a lot of other places. I would start with a million other places before the curse.
And we'll start to work on all those things the next time that Fred Katz is on the pod. But unfortunately for today, our time is up.
What word should we use instead for this bleeping team, this effing team, this stinking team?
As an aside, and shout out to Jeremy and XJ who got out the wonderful t-shirt version of the Mike Breen double bang call from last night. I can't tell you how many, there was more than a few people who came up to me. I have come up to me over the last, for a while now, but a couple people last night, you got to get that on a t-shirt. I don't know. Or people aren't going to wear a t-shirt with a curse word on it.
Yes, they will.
No, I don't.
I don't know if it should have the actual curse word on it.
No, it shouldn't. It should have Fred Katz's face in place of the U in effing.
This fretting team. Okay.
This fretting team. I have to go because I have there's a play date happening upstairs right now, and I'm the adult in the apartment, so that's great. Yeah. Fred's face.
Oh man.
They're like almost
you're the
like
adult?
in theory. Wait, where'd Fred go?
Right there.
He is. Okay. So I gotta wish you would do or bid you would do, Fred. Go subscribe to The Athletic. Not you. I'm sure already, you probably get a gift subscription because you work there. But everybody listening should go subscribe to The Athletic. And more importantly, or not as importantly, go on patreon.com and subscribe to Katz and Shoot. You're gonna find a lot of great coverage of the Knicks on there, on top of what you will read in The Athletic. And I don't think I forgot anything. Fred, anything else before we get out of here?
Absolutely nothing. Subscribe to John's newsletter.
Oh, that's very nice of you to say. I got some kind of drivel out there that I finished at 4 a.m. I can't speak to any semblance of coherence within that document that was emailed to inboxes today at 5 a.m., but got it out. So that's all that matters. Seriously, Fred is awesome. Thank you for coming on. This was great. I get to talk to you for another 2 hours about this game. But I think we will have an opportunity to talk about this series again. Or maybe not. I don't know. We'll see.
I think we'll talk, John.
I think we will talk. Yeah. Everybody out there, thanks for checking out another episode of the Knicks Film School Podcast. We'll be back with more fun and games before you know it. Peace out.